Good afternoon to everybody. Welcome to this panel, which is addressing the triangular cooperation, and the title is Triangular Cooperation and a Fostering Partnership between the South and the North. It is particularly well-fitting within the general framework of the Paris Peace Forum of this year, and it follows a very rich panel which happened this morning, animated by the President of the Islamic Development Bank, by former Niger President Issoufou Mamadou, with the Prime Minister of Bangladesh. This morning, they were talking about, the general political framework of the South-South and the triangular cooperation. Today, this afternoon, we will see more in practice how this has been implemented through a couple of projects which have been supported by the Paris Peace Forum and with a group of panelists, experts and actors of triangular cooperation. My name is Stefano Manservisi. Now, with us today are Ana Fernandez, Head of Foresight at OECD, Govind Venuprasad, Project Leader of the project which is supporting the Indian Trade and Investment for Africa and Coordinator for the International Trade Center, Neni Marlina, Project Leader for Triangular Cooperation, Afghanistan, Indonesia, Germany, and Principal Advisor of the Deutsche Gesellschaft für internationale Zusammenarbeit, GIZ, and Riyad Ragheb Ahmed, Acting Director, the Regional Cooperation and Integration Department of the Islamic Development Bank Group. So welcome to everybody, and let's try to make this session, showcasing, but also addressing what are the, the key issue of implementation, going beyond the political will of the triangular cooperation and within this South-South. Now, I would like to address some question to each of you in order that you can introduce your point of view, and then we can have a debate. I would like to recall that we have 1 hour. This is not a place for speeches, but rather for interchanges, and then we will have a moment of question and answer also coming from the public. Now, if you don't have any questions, maybe I can go straight. First, underlining how important is South-South cooperation and triangular, cooperation. Also, in my personal and professional experience with the European Commission, I've seen how important, how difficult is sometimes, but how rich is for the South, because a matter of solidarity is a matter of sharing, but also for the North to maybe learn some lessons, and in order not only to simplify procedure, but also to look at the cooperation from the point of view of those which are at the end supposed to be the beneficiary and also the actors, in order to make them and to make this project, scalable and sustainable. Therefore, a multiplier, a leverage, and a school of learning for everybody. Not easy, however, to implement. Now, let's say, if I may start with Ana Fernandez. Now, the COVID-19 crisis has generated that devastating impact on developing countries, many rolling back achievements that they were able to manage in the implementation of the Agenda 2030 and the SDGs in particular, And, in this, there is a sort of common formula. We can do it only together, more solidarity. At the same time, there is a bit of, weakness of the multilateral system. And I think that the North-South and triangular is a sort of, experimental multilateralism. How do you see, from your point of view, the impact of the crisis and the solutions that the triangular cooperation can bring in order precisely to help building back better, but underlining the better, maybe, not only the building back. Please, Anna.
Thanks so much for the invitation. It's a pleasure to be here. I wanted to say hello to all the colleagues in the panel, but also everyone that is listening. Answering to your question, Stefano, I think that's really the question is how can triangle cooperation contribute? Of course, this is one of the modalities, but as we say, there is no poor country that cannot contribute, and there is no rich country that also cannot learn. So in that sense, triangle cooperation is putting together not only financial resources, but also the expertise, the knowledge, the solutions that we can then scale up to really respond to the crisis. We had then recently a study from the GPI, the Global Partnership Initiative, where we asked the members what they see as the value added of triangle cooperation in responding to the crisis. And it's very clear that they see the value of sharing knowledge, sharing expertise in a trustful environment. The second point that they were also highlighting is that triangle cooperation brings that dimension of ownership and co-creation that is fundamental to get the solutions right. And it's also true that what the countries were valuing in their responses is also related with the capacity to implement. When we bring together Mexico, Argentina, UK, and we try to find solutions to deploy vaccines in Latin America, then we are bringing the different dots together and we are having more impact. So I say that triangle cooperation is not a panacea, but it's one of the solutions that we can invest more on to really bring solutions to the crisis. And it's true that also development assistance has increased. So we have now 161 billion of ODA, but it's very small amount compared with the needs that we need to have for fighting the pandemic and also to reboost the economic recovery. But the economic recovery can also be boosted by the knowledge that we can share, about the expertise we can share from different parts of the world without ideological bias. And I think that's what Triangle, because we work on the country level and we work at the country level, brings to the table as an opportunity.
Thank you. Just one further point on this. We are talking about triangular with a strong component of the South, because without this, obviously, it's a repetition of all schemes. In the global South, China is playing a crucial role in quantitative and in qualitative terms. In your experience, how China has fit into this? Because in certain experience, we saw that China was sometimes reluctant a bit to go into this strange multilateralism. In other cases, it went very well. What's been your experience and your thought about this?
Thanks, Stefano. We have a database of projects in the OECD, and we have more than 54 projects where China is partnering with DAC members and other partners of the South and developing countries in triangle cooperation projects. Our experience, also because we also as OECD engage very much with SITCA, the new agency from China, the new development cooperation agency from China. Our experience is this is a topic they are very interested on. They are sharing their expertise, and also from the DAC side, we know that a lot of members are interested on triangle cooperation, and we need to scale up the number of members interested on the triangle cooperation. But clearly, we don't see China out of the plate. On the contrary, we see them very, very interested and committed in having that dialogue and participating in this kind of modality. Of course, triangle cooperation doesn't replace our South cooperation. It's a complementary tool. And in that sense, triangle cooperation is not only about the big players of the South, it's also about other countries, as I mentioned before in my intervention. And you have a lot of examples where fragile countries are also bringing expertise to the table. Even in the vaccine and in the health systems, there are several experiences on the Ebola crisis that were managed by fragile countries in Africa that were used and were of experience and of use to, for instance, the US in the process of implementing their own system on vaccines and control disease in the US. So I think what we need to bring to the table is that triangle is not about the big players only, it's also about all the countries in the world that are interested in sharing expertise and knowledge.
Thank you very much. Now, turning to Neni Marlino, who's running this very interesting and important program in Afghanistan, which is, let's say, not only, a triangular cooperation, but it's also dealing with a very important subject, which is empower women, actually, in particular in rural area. And therefore, this project, which is seeing Afghanistan, Indonesia, and Germany through the GIZ, and is very innovative. It has created a lot of, opportunity for women. Tell us a bit about your experience and how you have, seen that in practice in delivering with the pros and cons. So in any case, the good things which have been created and things on which we have to reflect in order to do it better. Please.
Thank you, Stefano. I'm so delighted to be here in Paris Peace Forum 2021, also seeing my dear colleagues, familiar enthusiasts for triangular cooperation. And greetings from Jakarta, dear colleagues, the enthusiasts for global governance. Stefano, the project TRICO is bilateral Indonesia and Germany. It is aiming to support how the exchange between Afghanistan and Indonesia in terms of empowering women through home-based industry. Indeed, it's a completed project. It's very interesting in terms of joint learning between all countries involved since the very beginning, even beyond the planning project itself. So your point about learning, I would like to quote what Anna mentioned, ownership and co-creation. It is there in triangular cooperation, Afghanistan, Indonesia, Germany for the economic empowerment of women. The initiative and the discussion from the very beginning is an opportunity for all involved countries to shape, to understand what might be interest among others. And it is not about how Germany as the facilitating partner patronizing on women economic empowerment, but to hear together from the very beginning. I would like to recall the kickoff of TRICO. It was beyond the TRICO itself. So no bilateral yet cooperation between Indonesia and Germany. There was a request from our Indonesian counterpart, Ministry of Women Empowerment and Child Protection in Indonesia. So the reason of being of TRICO was to answer the 5-year signed MOU between Indonesia and Afghanistan, signed 2013. It was about to end in 2018. So I would like to get back to you on the learning point. Legal framework is very important to shape the partnership, but then it also needs, if I would, if you allow me to introduce, I will bring the C for TRICO. It is important to have the clarity of each and every one in the participating countries. Indonesia is the pivotal country, is so committed, and Afghanistan at that time, given the opportunity that there is a learning point from Indonesia, and then it brings also the commitment from the Afghanistan side. So the clarity of role, it creates the commitment among others, and if the commitment is in place, then it will ease the coordination. So that's the next C. So I introduced already the 3C, the clarity of role, the commitment. I need to stop because this is triangular, but allow me to add another C, another 2 is the cooperation itself. Because each and every one then put the commitment, is the coordination. So all the bureaucracy was up away. Yes, we have the informal, the very formal steering, we have the letter, but then prior to that, the discussion has been in place, each and everyone having the room to listen and to understand the priorities. As such, it brings the concrete partnership of TRICO itself. Yeah, if I could mention, amidst the current situation happening in Afghanistan, in less than 6 months, Indonesia and Afghanistan agree the 8 best practice on how to develop women economic empowerment based on the practice in Indonesia, and then share and reduplicate it in Afghanistan. I will stop there. It's showing how legal framework is important, but then sharing commitment, having a concrete engagement in partnership, it will then eventually bring a real partnership into a concrete change in the both beneficiary country and the pivotal, as well as the facilitating country, Germany. Off to you, Stefano.
Thank you. Thank you very much. This is not only very important and very useful, but also gives a certain hope, because we are talking about things that are happening, that happened, and on which we can keep building, in particular because it was not only institutional, but there was a lot of different stakeholders which were involved into this. But by the way, how you did manage this sort of, let's say, particularly complex composition, in a situation like Afghanistan, because after all, there were not only institutions, but also organizational people, very often not well structured. So how you manage, to consolidate all this and to get a good result at the end?
Thank you, Stefano. Again, I would like to reiterate the importance of joint effort, the spirit as mentioned by Anna, solidarity, exchange, joint effort, how each and everyone then can have the openness to listen each other. I would mention about the importance of steering in this case. Steering in TRICO is not only a tool or a mechanism to monitor the implementation of the project, but also to give a room for the less heard partner, the less heard entity, to also contribute how the implementation of TRICO. I would like to highlight the previous session before us is on how CSO could contribute for effective triangular cooperation. In Indonesia during TRICO, being Indonesian, then it was such an eye-opening for me to learn that indeed Indonesia has an organic TSO to encourage women to generate income with the basis because TSO is the one working directly with the grassroots. So it is important to have, again, a concrete partnership mechanism, and then how it is then give a room for each and everyone to be heard, to contribute, and also most important is it has triangular cooperation. So it takes two to tango, and then it takes three roles there to really be there, being heard, share the commitment, and being open. As such, what being implemented in TRICO is really reflecting and giving the benefit of each roles or each countries involved. I would like to share that I would like to share and value how the Afghanistan colleague, my counterpart at that time during TRICO, being very proactive in the engagement with the Indonesia. The deputy minister met directly with the community, with the women itself. So one thing very important is that triangular cooperation shall be applied beyond government to government, but it should invite also the community, the user, the people that will get the impact of the partnership itself. So having those in one engagement committed by all partners, I think that's to summarize how triangular cooperation, Afghanistan, Germany, on women economic empowerment concretely create change, less than. It was a very short cooperation anyway, okay, but then creating change among each and everyone involved, and also to Indonesia as the pivotal country. I will stop there, Stefano.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Very useful, because this, in fact, is going beyond the triangular, is a bit plurilateral, let's say, cooperation with not only institutions, but also local communities, which is very much in tune and in line with what the Paris Peace Forum is looking for, is to identify innovative way of doing multilateralism, if I may say so. Now, if I might, I may turn to Govin Venuprasad, the International Trade Center. Now, tell a bit about what you are observing from the CETA project, bringing together Indian and African business together. How this project is, they say, is benefiting from the South-South triangular formula, and what difficulties and what results you would like to underline more, in order that our observers and our people which are watching us are, let's say, taking the most out of what you are doing as ITC in partnership with Indian and African business. Please, Govind.
Good afternoon, Stefano. Good afternoon to my fellow panelists. Good to see all of you. And many thanks to the Paris Peace Forum for supporting Indian trade and investment for Africa, or better known through its acronym CETA, to be at the forum this year. Now, the first part of your question about what are observations in bringing Indian and African businesses together. And let me just put it in 2 points. We have been able to bridge two asymmetries that really were obstacles to growing the trade and investment relationship between India and the 5 Eastern African countries we focus on, which is Ethiopia, Kenya, Rwanda, Tanzania, and Uganda. And the first was information asymmetry. On the one hand, there is opportunity, but sometimes it seems like the hair on Yul Brynner's head. It's there, but you can't see it. The second is perception, which, really with time can fester and kind of, create the wrong kind of impression. And these are very powerful, because at the end of the day, whether it's peer-to-peer at the business-to-business level, or whether it's institutions to institutions, who again are peers across borders, the absence of information and the presence of certain perceptions really play the spoiler there. So what we have observed is that through a lot of the initial analytical work, the contacts at the business level, at the institutional level, getting people, getting institutions, getting businesses to understand each other better, it just opens the door to opportunity on both sides. And that led to a lot of public good of analytical work, be it in environment, be it in renewables, be it in appropriate technology, adaptation, transfer, be it in industrial upgradation in the way that it is possible with the funds there, has been done. Finally, we also have created now an accepted methodology that can live on after us, that can be adopted, that can be taken on board, and that can go on from strength to strength. And all this was only possible once we bridged the asymmetries. Now, in terms of the hurdles, I think straight away, the first hurdle was acceptance. So what? What do you bring to the party? Because let's face it, whether it's East Africa, whether it's India, we're not talking of one receiving from the other, but both sharing. There is quite a bit of development fatigue. There are flavors of the season, and sometimes the real needs are not addressed. It's more the wants that are addressed. The second, and Anna mentioned this in the context of the GPI, which we've been very fortunate to partner with for a while now, is the question of trust. Because it's once trust is there that both sides will invest in taking the relationship forward. And the third is something all of us face: sustainability. After us, who? So these were the initial hurdles for which, as we go, we can talk about the solutions that we found and the kind of environment that we have created, the platforms that we have created for them to go on, which then avers to the first part of my answer, which was once the asymmetries were bridged, the opportunities were unlocked, and things started moving. So I would say that these are the kind of learnings that we have had, and some of the obstacles that we had faced. I hope I've answered your question, Stefano.
Thank you very much. Then we will come back to some of the points raised by you all. But now, going ahead with Riyad Ragheb Ahmed of the Islamic Development Bank. Riyad, this morning your president said very clearly that there is a sort of development agony, underlining the necessity to innovate profoundly. And he also stated with pride, and rightly so, that the Islamic Development Bank has always been, let's say, the principal actor in the South-South cooperation, also covering with its own membership, a big part of the Global South, what we call the Global South. So therefore, the Islamic Development Bank is the perfect, and advanced actor to implement, South-South cooperation and progressively triangular cooperation. Now, how does the investment fit into this work? Why, the triangular South-South project can be especially attractive for investment? What kind of hesitation you can have? In other terms, how you are doing it in order to identify that is worth doing, and second, in order to limit as much as possible all the hurdle and the difficulties, because at the end of the day, you're a bank. and therefore, you must be a bank, business-driven, and driven by the objective of an investment. So therefore, how you would situate yourself in concrete terms into this sector of activity?
Thank you very much, Stefano. I think it's a pleasure to be with Anna, Neni, and Covin. Let me start by thanking the Paris Peace Forum organizer for devoting a session on triangle cooperation. But I think before jumping to the question directly, I want to correct something, Stefano. We are a development bank. Our purpose is poverty alleviation. And that's really very important. When it comes to triangular cooperation, I think let us go back to the definition of triangular cooperation as such. Triangular cooperation is a partnership arrangement whereby you have one country of the Global South sharing its development solution with another country of the Global South with the support or in collaboration with the North or a development bank like the bank. And we do consider that this is a modality that will be growing. Now, why are we investing in such modality? For many reasons. I will only highlight two of them. Stefano, when it comes to development, when it comes to poverty alleviation, we don't have one single approach or one single solution. I think we have to combine different modalities or development cooperation modalities, South-South, North-South, and triangle cooperation. And I think that's also part of the menu that we're proposing to the member country. A second reason on why investing on or putting efforts on triangle cooperation. Triangle cooperation as a modality has many implications that are very important to highlight. One of them, when we do triangle cooperation, it means that the North recognizes that the South has a wealth of knowledge and solution and expertise. And that for us is a very important element. And Covin mentioned that by investing in triangle cooperation, the North trusts the South. They recognize that the South, they have solutions. And as a bank, we do believe I think that there are many solutions that are available in our member countries, but also in the Global South that can be beneficial not only for the South, but also for the North. And I think that's why, as a bank, we are working and we are investing a lot of efforts and time on triangle cooperation. And also, Stefano, our first program as a bank to support triangle cooperation started in 1983. I think now, for the last 2 decades, the other donors start talking about triangle cooperation. But as a bank, we started from 1983, and we have practical and concrete implementation on the ground. Now, the hesitation, the hurdles to some extent. Again, since it's a new modality for many partners, I think they don't have yet the tools, the modalities to be engaged in triangle cooperation. And many donors now are just thinking and they are hesitating in putting and investing on triangle cooperation. But they can partner with our institution, and we can also show them how we can do that and what we can do. But also a second hesitation, which is always coming, when we talk with partners, particularly from the North, that, the transaction cost. The transaction cost of activities related to triangle cooperation could be high because we have 3 different parties. I think Neni highlighted that at least in triangle cooperation, we have 3 parties involved. Now, ensuring communication and dialogue between those 3 parties may have some transaction costs, but at the end, the benefit is higher for us than the transaction cost on its own, because this approach improves the bridge between the North and the South, the trust, the dialogue. It strengthens the partnership. It creates co-responsibility, joint decision-making, and at the end, I think we see that it's more sustainable as intervention. I think those are I think why we are engaged in triangle cooperation. Thank you, Stefano.
Very well. Tell me one thing, Inyo. I guess that as a development bank, of course, you have made an analysis and an assessment on what will be the sector offering the biggest opportunities for investing in formula like triangular cooperation. What would like you to underline as the most promising sector in which you would like to engage and to put at the disposal of the different partners the knowledge, the experience which was done by the Islamic Development Bank? Where you think that triangular cooperation could be the most effective in the present situation, recovering from COVID and the changing course a bit of our, let's say, development paradigm, if I may say, at global level, by the way?
I think, yes, as you said, COVID-19 is now the new context. And I think one of the areas where we do see that triangle cooperation can be effective, can bring a lot, is vaccines production. I think combining and transferring the knowledge and combining the effort between the North and the South for producing vaccines in the country of the South is really an area that we do think deserves a lot of attention, where Triangle Cooperation can focus its effort on. In addition to vaccine, I think there is also the digital gap, the digitalization. I think this is also an area where Triangle Cooperation can also invest. And I think we are now talking about leaving no one behind, but also we should leave no one offline. I think that's something where Triangular Cooperation can also help and bring solutions from among the countries of the South with the support of the North. To summarize, vaccine and digitalization, I think, should be and could be a priority, particularly in this context of COVID-19.
Very clear. Thank you. Thank you very much. Now, in the meantime, we have received also a question from the audience, from Jeanette Ariola, who is asking, what do you consider to be the most appropriate support and inclusion schemes to co-create triangular cooperation initiatives that contemplate the most vulnerable communities? In other terms, seeing, as it has been the case a bit with the Afghanistan women, to start from something which is conceived triangular, a bit institutional, but how this can facilitate the creation of, let's say, involvement of vulnerable communities in the design and in the making of this project of cooperation. Because after all, bilateral institutional cooperation, multilateral institutional cooperation, trilateral institutional cooperation could be different modalities of doing the same thing. So delivering a services, but not necessarily, let's say, creating a condition to mobilize the communities, And I think that we have the experience which has been made in Afghanistan, but this question is, in the experience, how would be the best way to facilitate schemes which are helping vulnerable communities to be more in the driving seat in triangular cooperation? Maybe we can start in the other way with Riyadh, for example, in your experience, and then Govind, and then Neni.
I think, for me, is one word will be the key: dialogue. Dialogue at all levels. When we design any triangular cooperation intervention, we have to make sure that all the concerned stakeholders are involved in the process. It's not a cut-and-paste approach. You don't take a solution from country A and try to put it in country B like that with the support of the North. I think dialogue should be the starting point, and from the design, having this process of consultation, this peer-to-peer, this discussion is really crucial. But also it's crucial to adapt the solution that will be transferred to the need of the different communities within the country, within the different region of the countries, and I think that's quite important. And again, dialogue is the key, consultation from the design itself, and make sure that what is proposed is relevant to the communities and it addresses the needs. Triangular cooperation and also all the intervention should be demand-driven. I think that's one of the key words also. We have to make sure that dialogue is there and we are addressing a need. I think that's the point that I will be insisting on to reply to this question, Stefano.
Thank you very much. Govind, what do you think?
Thank you, Stefano. I'd like to, I think Riyadh has given a fantastic framework for this. But if I can just go to a live example, I had mentioned we work in, between India and 5 Eastern African countries. Now, one of those countries has been the biggest destination in Africa for textiles and garment-related investment, inward investment. And then when we went into this, what we really found was there was this great vulnerable population, economically vulnerable. And as a result of economic vulnerability, that would kind of lead to social exclusion also. And that was the handloom weavers, who for millennia have in many ways, wherever you have a weaving culture, it tells the story of your country, not in its current form, but even in its old form. It is a great bridge between economy, culture, and the story you tell. And they were completely cut out of this because weaving continued, but the kind of products they could get to market were limited. So in our triangular, and here the triangular part is that our funds for this pilot, we took it as a pilot, came from from our donor, currently called FCDO. And we found that this huge community could really rise to the challenge, and then there could be economic and social inclusion. So very simply put, what we did was we created, in cooperation with local authorities at the provincial level, to some extent at the national level, the first social enterprise of handloom weavers in that country as an example. And now, looking forward, 2 years, 3 years of work on, not only is that social enterprise self-sustaining, but it has also contributed to the dignity, because many of the processes, the working conditions, the health, safety, environment that the weavers operated in didn't really give their work at the production level a level of dignity. So today they work with the best HSE looms, where it was the adaptation of solar-powered looms from India, because when we talk handloom in the south, I think India is clearly the leader, to this particular country, bringing in spinning equipment, micro spinning equipment that is again solar-powered, and providing them ergonomic and workplace training, hygiene, and cleanliness inputs, to the extent that not only is handloom fabric being created, not only is it being naturally dyed, so that no chemical dyes are used, the environment is safe, but they are also being manufactured. That is, they are being cut, measured, and trimmed into products that are now in the domestic market, regional as well as national, and already export orders are being received, because there is a whole story being told there, as well as the creation of a label of origin which tells the story of this product. So I think it is really important. So there is the marketing, there's the design, but the whole idea is look at the needs of the vulnerable communities and then create a pilot that can then be replicated across provinces, across related sectors, and perhaps across the continent as the need may be. I can already say that there has been a lot of learning in neighboring countries, and now we have 2 other countries that have adopted the natural dyeing processes, which kind of obviate the use of chemicals and any kind of environmental or personal safety issues that non-natural chemicals can come in. So, and this is a now producer-owned company. They manage it, they own it, and the greater part is the company has brought in educated youth from the community to be the managers, so that the artisans can focus on their own work, while the managers can look at the governance as well as the marketing and financial sustainability. So it has addressed several points, and I hope this example kind of gives us an idea of how things can go.
Yeah, very useful also, because seen from a point of view of job creation, mechanism of job creation, and therefore so generating economic activity sustainable. Neni, from your point of view, because you have been the one already, let's say, confronted with this, let's say, plurilateral cooperation with the trilateral institutional, but with the communities, let's say. What is the best way that you would suggest or identify, as a method to bring in the most vulnerable communities in defining the design and also in implementing them for the benefit of those which at the end are those which are supposed to take advantage of this?
Thank you, Stefano. I would start by echoing what mentioned by Riyad. Dialogue, that's very important. I introduced already 5 C's, and allow me to introduce another 3 C's. When the dialogue happened, I would like to share the experience. When the Afghan colleague visited the eastern part of Indonesia and then learned that how the community try to generate income through women in home-based industry. It is not only about sharing the intellectual knowledge, but it's also the opportunity of each and everyone to listen what is the story behind. When the dialogue in place, then that's the opportunity also to collect the information, both from the pivotal countries and also, say, the beneficiary country. So that's the first C that I would like to introduce. It is to collect the information, what's needed, what's the interest between the involved in triangular cooperation. And then the second C is how as much as possible to connect with the culture, the custom, or say the situation at the beneficiary country. And then invite each and everyone to co-create. So it will support the sustainability of whatever the sector that being strengthened. Or for example, if it's about the women economic empowerment, then as much as possible, then it can also be the avenue for the pivotal country to get the benefit of one element in GPI, the Global Partnership Initiative on Triangular Cooperation, is the co-creation itself. So there will be a legacy, and then there will be an opportunity for those involved countries to scale up. I'm going to share the experience of my counterpart in Indonesia. It is because the high engagement in collecting the data and trying to support the case in Afghanistan, how the women in home-based industry can be reduplicated in Afghanistan, then it gives the opportunity to Indonesia to reflect, to observe, and then to develop what's so-called the 7 steps to develop women in home-based industry. Women in home-based industry has been there in Indonesia, but then it took TRICO to bring Indonesia to reflect and then to jointly develop the mechanism, what is the step, what is the necessary elements to do if it's relevant to women economic empowerment. At the end of the road, after the co-creation, then Indonesia has the legacy of a guideline how the women in home-based industry can be reduplicated in other countries. So when there is another request coming to Indonesia as triangular cooperation is mostly in Indonesia, is based on demand-driven, then there is an opportunity to Indonesia to showcase the success in TRICO to other countries. So my next 3C that I hope can answer the question is how to, as much as possible, collect the data, collect the information, and then after that, connect the ideas and co-create the joint effort together. Then each and everyone will have the opportunity to answer the social gap existing. I hope it can answer the question in such a way. Thank you, Stefan.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Now, Anna, I guess that in your big databases, that you mentioned at the beginning, you also have some, let's say, experiences and knowledge on where this involvement of the most vulnerable community has worked better than in other cases, and what could be the lessons that you are taking from your, let's say, overviewing a bit this and facilitating all this, and what kind of experience you can share in order to reply to this very, very important question.
Indeed, Stefan, thanks. This is a very important question. And why? Because all of us working on development cooperation, in the end, we should achieve impact, and we should work for those that, benefit from this project. So we need to be accountable to the populations, and we also need to be accountable to the communities that are benefiting and getting the impact and hopefully a positive impact of all these projects. So I want to bring that to perspective. That is, this is also about being accountable to the communities, not only just consulting on the co-design, but continue to engage the communities throughout the processes in developing the programming, and then again, also being accountable and hearing from them about how can we improve the way we are working to serve them in the end. So it's very important not to forget the development dimension here in terms of impact, but also the need to assess, evaluate, and measure these projects so we can really report back on success and we can learn from in success. So in our database, and just to explain a little bit, the work of the OECD kind of three big pillars on triangle cooperation. We at the Development Cooperation Directorate are collecting data, both in terms of financial data, trying to grasp how much volume of financing is being given by the donors on these kind of projects, but also now with a new tool on total official support for sustainable development, also try to grasp how much flows are going to an in-kind contribution is given to Triangle Cooperation and South-South Cooperation. Then why are we collecting that data and now are we summing up that data? Because that data shows that Triangle Cooperation is not a niche modality, it's a global modality that is being implemented around the world and impacting around the world. The second pillar that we are investing a lot is also about putting a space for dialogue. And here, as it was mentioned before, dialogue is very important. And we work with several colleagues around this table with the bank and others and in the framework of the GPI to really promote that space of dialogue. Dialogue with big players of the South, dialogue with players that are not considered big, but they have a lot to contribute to. But beyond the official providers or the governments, it's very important to engage communities, civil society, private sector, academia, foundations around this modality. So our evidence shows that when we can bring those communities on board, the capacity to impact and the capacity to be much more assertive and much more effective in responding to their needs, it's there. So the more we consult, the more ownership, the more co-creation we have, the more successful will be the project. And that's in a nutshell, in a sum up, the data, the results of that assessment. The third big pillar, it's also related with advising countries and partners on how to do triangle cooperation. As Riyad was mentioning, there is a lot of scope still to bring tools, instruments, and to improve the way we are doing it, and to mainstream triangle cooperation across the different areas of policy. I think before Riyad was talking about digital, it was talking about other areas. I think environment is also one of the areas where triangle cooperation should be mainstreamed. So in a nutshell, just to say, it's important to hear from the communities, but it's also important to be accountable to them, because in the end, we should all serve the purpose of a better and safer and more developed world for future generations.
Thank you, Anna. By the way, I would like to recall the audience that there is the possibility to ask questions. I don't know if you're asking. There's a couple of others which arrived from George Ashaka from Uganda. Is it not possible to exploit the Sahel region of Africa for solar power generation to Europe through a triangular cooperation? So very concrete example. Say, obviously, Europe needs clean energy. Sahara, in particular Sahel, produces a lot of energy, or potentially can produce much more in terms of, let's say, gigawatt coming from solar energy. Now, this is a typical case in which we can set up a triangular cooperation. If I ask, for example, Riyadh, which would be essentially, being a bank, the one to which this question can be put. There is a big project in which we can create this sort of triangular cooperation, which is very clear. How do you look at that, Riyadh? Is that bankable, or what are the conditions to be bankable, and at the same time respecting this, let's say, approach, which is the essence of this new form of multilateralism?
Stefan, we are doing it to some extent, not for the North. We are doing it among the countries of the South now, because I think before going and trying to take the solar energy that we have in the Sahel for the North, let us first do it for the South itself. I think we have now triangular cooperation projects where for a country like Mali, Niger, and Chad, where they are the beneficiary. And Morocco is the provider of knowledge to build and to put in place solar energy power plant. And those are projects that are being now currently funded by the bank, supported by the bank. We are using in our jargon terminology the reverse linkage modality. This is the bank terminology for triangle cooperation. We have now currently under implementation projects where we are using the knowledge and know-how and expertise of Morocco, because Morocco is leading in this area of of developing solar energy and power plant there. I think they have an institution called Mazen, well known. We are partnering now with Mazen, with also ONI, l'Office National de l'Eau et de l'Électricité of Morocco, to transfer that know-how. And we are now doing such projects currently on Triangle Cooperation, investing millions for Mali, Chad, Niger, and we are planning to expand it. Once we address the needs of the country of the Sahel, then we can later on think on how can we use that also for the North. But at this stage, priority is for the needs, because as you said, clean energy is really crucial and is needed in those countries, definitely. But yes, Triangle Cooperation could be used for that, and we have concrete example already going on the ground now under implementation.
Thank you very much. No, the question was raised by George from Uganda. So that's, just to see, that this is a real triangle in the sense that benefits are for everybody, if I understand correctly. Let's say the question. And I think that this is a point that I would like maybe to underline, because since we have just a few minutes, may I ask you, all of you, in your forecast, in particular, OECD, Foresight, in Indonesia, Islamic Bank, and ITC, if you have to forecast a bit, what will be the relative weight that triangular cooperation will occupy in your work, in respect of the pre-pandemic? After all, we are saying every day, pandemic has created common challenges, pushing for more collaboration. There's a lot of rhetoric, of course, but more important, it is absolutely true. If you can say, in really 1 minute each, do you think that your organization, your point of view, your work will invest more in Triangular in order to address what are the global issues that we have together? In other terms, do you think that you will invest more of your time and resources or not in Triangular Cooperation? Maybe we can start with the Gavinder and then going on with Neni and Anna, and then back also to Riyad. Please.
Thank you, Stefano. I would have had a gushing answer if you were wearing your previous hat. But certainly, there is no looking back. There is no looking back. And whether we call it triangular, whether we call it south-south, even if we drop the binaries, it is here to stay, and it can only grow. And while I cannot take full responsibility speaking for the hierarchy above me, I think they're seized to the matter. Our head of organization always talks up the need for more South-South and triangular cooperation, embedded with productive youth and women's economic empowerment. I think certainly there's no looking back. There's no looking back. Thank you.
Thanks. In particular, ITC is particularly well positioned for that, by the way.
Thank you.
Neni.
Thank you, Stefano.
Thank you. Thank you, Stefano, and thank you, Govind. Well, okay, yes, indeed, we are here. There is no looking back. As Jia said, we are looking forward. We are looking forward to work together with more countries like Indonesia and Mexico and Vietnam, the global partners. And it is South-South cooperation through the solidarity and knowledge exchange that can effectively work hand in hand with, say, the DAC country in triangular cooperation. I mean, it's too far for example, Myanmar to learn about fiscal decentralization to Germany, but then with Indonesia around, then it's a lot easier. So because the gap is shorter, and in a way, the solidarity, the knowledge exchange, and the flexibility, the openness, the spirit of knowledge exchange, it supports all the effective partnerships. So certainly, triangular cooperation or South-South triangular cooperation, then it will be complementing all the previous partnerships. That would
Thank
be
you, Anna. Anna.
So
we have to accelerate a bit.
Yes, my answer is yes, saying the following. If we compare when we did the first meeting in Lisbon on Triangle Cooperation in 2011, what we have now, Triangle Cooperation is growing in all the regions of the world. triangle cooperation is growing from the interest of DAC members, even if we need to do even more work to mainstream triangle cooperation on development cooperation. We see from the evidence we are collecting, more colleagues are investing and more partners are investing on this. The South is also more interest, and I think BAPA 40 Plus was a good landmark for breaking some of the divides, the ideological divides, and start thinking about on concrete solutions at the country level. And we also see that in the papers that we are producing about triangle cooperation in Africa, the papers we are doing with India, and I think triangle cooperation being really a contributor to this effective multilateralism that we were talking about also yesterday in the opening of the Paris Forum, and that also the president of the Islamic Development Bank was bringing when talking about the GPI. And we look forward as OECD to seize this window of opportunity to continue to deconstruct these ideas about North and South and divides, and try to really put all the knowledge, all the resources that we have together. Because as we say, we only have one shot to survive. So if we only have one shot to survive, let's do it. And I will stop here.
Riyad, le mot de la fin. How your portfolio will grow in terms of
Anna gave 3 yes. I will add a 4th yes to her to that. As a bank, we are a big advocate for triangle cooperation, and we do think that this is a modality that will be growing, a modality that will be complementing, not substituting North-South and South-South. I think that's very important to highlight. And we are, as an advocate, we are working with the Global Partnership Initiative on Effective Triangle Cooperation to bring evidence, because I think what's really important here to convince and to bring others around the table to invest in triangle cooperation. I think with the GPI, we are working on bringing evidence and to encourage others to come and invest in this modality, because we do believe that this is one of the solutions that we have to support.
Good. Thank you very much. So just to conclude, I take some buzzword: trust, ownership, co-creation, mutual learning, and dialogue. I think with your contribution, I think in the spirit of the Paris Peace Forum, we identify the element for an effective plural governance for the post-crisis. And I personally very much agree and very much believe into this approach, which can bring certainly development, surely peace and stability, and maybe better hope to build better, not only to build back. And I think, this is a bit amid the message that we can deliver all together to the Paris Peace Forum and to all those which attended. Thank you, Anna. Thank you, Govind. Thank you, Neni. And thank you, Riyad, for having attended this panel. And thank you to everybody for being following.
Thank you, Stefano. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank
you, Stefano. Thank you all.
Bye. Thank you very much. Bye.